Welcome to another episode of the Lone Recruiter Podcast. Today we are joined by Amy Hume. Amy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's really cool to be here chatting to you, Brett.
Well, it's very exciting. So for anyone listening at home, I met Amy only about a month ago. We had her come in and do some voice work for the team. Now, I want to give you a quick intro because you've done a lot, some really cool things as well. So you're a voice and dialect practitioner. You've worked on musicals I've heard of, so they must be big. Billy Elliot, Matilda, very cool. You've been a voice tutor at NIDA, a big acting school. You're a current lecturer at Victorian College of Arts, and you're a fortnightly guest on ABC Radio Melbourne, and you do a lot of private voice coaching via your Amy Hume voice coaching. What can't you do? It's amazing. It's cool. So we had you come in and I said, you know what? We are a group of recruiters and every quarter we want to do something different. Like what's a skill set that we could put attention on? And I thought, you know what? For every recruiter out there listening, we use our voice. Our voice is our biggest tool. It's the biggest toolbox in our kit. And I reckon that a lot of people don't use it well. And I reckon a lot of people need a lot of help to strengthen it, to pace it, to make it sound better, to make it sound more inviting. And I thought, I wonder if you could help us, Amy. You said, absolutely, that sounds fun. Let's go do that. So, that's the setup. I don't have a lot of questions for you because once you get going, you're going to keep going. But everyone listening at home, this is Amy. So, look, where do we want to start? Where do you want to start with this?
Well, I guess you just touched on something really essential, that when you were thinking about it as for the work that you wanted to do with your staff as recruiters, that your voice is a primary tool. It's this essential tool that you have in your job. And the work that I do with actors comes from that at its very core, that for actors, their voice is their primary tool. They've got their voice and their body, and those two things allow them to transform into different characters and play in different performance spaces and meet the demands of different texts. And for you as recruiters, you're looking at those same kind of demands but in a different setting. So to me, that's where my work gets really interesting, where I get to take this juicy stuff that I do with actors in professional settings and in the training ground as well, and apply it to non-actors to really help them or to help work with your staff to bring an awareness to how you're using your voices and allow you to kind of leverage your voice so that it starts to play a more active role in your job and the sort of work that you're doing.
Do you find there is, like an actor, right? They're a trained actor. They obviously used to using their voice. They're quick to respond or whatever. Is it difficult working with non-thespians, non-trained people?
Oh, no way. I think it's incredibly interesting. The thing with actors is I find when I go into a room, the actors are waiting for me. They know that we're going to do some voice work. They know at some stage in a rehearsal process or in their training, they're going to be working on their voice. And then they expect outcomes from that. Now, you bringing me in to run training for your staff, you also expect outcomes, but they might be a little bit more unknown to you. And some of the exercises that I might have you do, they might take you by surprise and you might be stepping outside your comfort zone, but then as a result, you experience this kind of transformation in a way that you weren't expecting, and that can be incredibly rewarding. And to me, that's where the work gets much more detailed and more interesting.
What sort of exercises would you typically bring into a group of recruiters? Like what comes to mind when you go, let's work with a bunch of recruiters?
So when I had in mind going in to work with your staff, I was really thinking, okay, what are the challenges that recruiters face in their roles that come back to the voice? The obvious thing is that you're speaking all day, so the voice is probably at risk of getting tired or fatigued or strained. So there's that sort of fundamental vocal care element. So we want to look at that. But then beyond that, you're I was imagining you're spending a lot of the time on the phone or on virtual calls. And so your voice is actually the thing that's connecting you to the people, whether it's your clients or candidates as well. So your voice is the thing that's helping you build that relationship with those people. And in that sense, your voice is really essential to you establishing trust with whether it's clients or candidates and building rapport as well. And you can only do those, or you're far more likely to be able to do those things if the voice is coming across as authentic and the person on the other end of the phone is feeling that they're really hearing you. And we feel that we don't really hear someone a lot of the time when the voice is maybe a bit monotonous, or it's all sounding a bit repetitive, or you sound like you've been on the phone all day, or that you've had the same conversation a few times. You may have had the same conversation a few times, but that person on the other end of the phone, to them, you're having it for the very first time. And so they want to hear some sort of variety or modulation in what you're saying. So with that in mind, I thought I've got this favorite exercise that comes from a practitioner called Christina Schul, and I call it the pitch orchestra. And it's where you imagine, if you picture a band or an orchestra, you picture the conductor and the way that they are conducting the music. So you take on that role of the conductor yourself, and you conduct your own voice. And we do that very simply by taking one word, say, I'll get you to do this right now. You take the word
Oh my
yes.
goodness. Yes.
You take the word yes, and you're going to use your hands to conduct your voice and say the word yes 10 different ways, right? It might be short, it might be long, fast, slow. It could be high or low pitch, but you're going to let your hands guide you. You can't plan how you're going to say this word.
So you want me to do this now? You're going to make a fool of myself. All right, I'm doing this for you. I'm going to do this for everyone. Okay, so we're going to go, what? Yes. 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 Oh, man. Beth is going to have a field day cutting this up for socials. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And now do it
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Just amazing.
And when you do that, you start to realize, well, hold on a second. In a day, you're not going to say yes the same way all day. It's the same with if you said hello. You're not going to greet people hello the exact same way every time. So it actually makes you realize you already use your voice in many different ways throughout the day. So could you more actively bring that variety into just a conversation like the one that you and I are having right now?
Absolutely. So variety is almost like, it's like if we only got our ears to use, right, it's that variety that's going to keep them engaged, keep them interested.
Totally. It's very easy for people to not listen, I think, especially in this sort of 21st century world. It's really, we're very visually stimulated, where our eyes are drawn to what is going to feed them, and it's really easy to tune out. So I always think, well, let's make it hard for people to not listen. Like, let's make it as easy as possible for them to stay tuned in and stay with you through a conversation. And if you think of your favorite music, the music that you love and that you want to listen to over and over has variety, right? If a song is like super repetitive, you're going to tune out, you sort of stop listening to it. But if it's there's something there that kind of keeps you captivated, keeps you interested, then you keep tuning in. It's exactly the same for speaking.
And look, part of getting you in was I did a lot of drama through high school, surprise, but I had a great drama teacher who was really big on volume, tone, pacing, stopping, letting the words linger. And it's only now that I'm starting to realize how much of that I've taken into the world of work. You know, like the big one for me was he'd say, when you want to get someone's attention, your natural instinct is to speak louder, but the reality is if you speak lower and lean in, they're going to lean in with you, right?
Totally. There's this phrase I often use with my undergraduate students. I say to them, okay, you're very, very interested in how loud you can be on stage, but isn't it far more interesting for us to explore how quiet you can be? How intimately can you play a scene so that the entire audience of 500, 600, 700 people lean forward in their chairs and are right there with you, believing that it's just you and that other person in that little moment that's playing out on stage. Exactly the same in a boardroom, you know. It's you said before which words linger, and that made me think of, you know, it's when you pause And pause can be incredibly strategic, and especially for recruiters, right? Because you want to pause so that that other person comes in with their thoughts, because you don't necessarily want to be the one who's, saying everything.
And that is a massive thing that I see all the time with recruiters, is they're very good at talking at people. And I'm always like, guys, just listen more. Like say way less, and what you say, make it punchy, like make it mean something, right? Cool. I think we're on the same page on that. So another one that came up that I really want to tap on is the quality of voice, right? The vocal fry stuff, because I asked the office, what did you guys get out of your time with Amy? And the one that everyone came back with was this vocal fry, because we all know as recruiters, you're on the phone, those days, or you might name me, but those days, of course you would, you're working with actors on stages, but you're smashing the phones all day long. You get to about 2-3 o'clock and you're like, my God, my voice is going. I've still got a few more hours to go. Let's talk around this, because I know you've got some great tips and tricks around a concept called vocal fry.
Vocal fry is an interesting thing, and I think going into this conversation, it's really important to say that we're not talking about it because we're policing voices. We're really talking about it from the perspective of, how you're sort of becoming aware of how you speak as an individual. And I think when you're using your voice as part of your professional role, it's beneficial to know, what's the research telling us about how certain voices are perceived and how they come across. And it would be great if the world changed and how we're perceived changed, but we can't change the world overnight. So being informed is, really valuable. So vocal fry is that kind of croaky, crackly quality in the voice. And what's happening is it's the lowest part of your vocal register, and it's when, if I go into that vocal fry voice, it's when the vocal folds aren't really coming together. And so physiologically, people say it's fine, and the speech pathologist would say it's fine, it's not going to ruin your voice, we don't need to pathologize it. But in terms of how it comes across, numerous studies have shown that when people speak that way, it comes across as less educated, less certain, less knowledgeable, less competent. So you sort of do want to be aware of it if you're slipping into that, because that could affect the rapport that you're building with someone else.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you mentioned sort of what happens to your voice at the end of the day. Well, as we get more and more tired, we might collapse more and more in our chair and kind of become smaller and smaller. And as you go to that place, as you go there.
Take a job.
You go there physically, there's less breath coming in. So then there's less breath to support your voice coming out. And so your voice ends up sitting in this like kind of croaky place. I often say to people, it's much more interesting to think about why you're speaking that way. Is it because you're kind of physically, mentally exhausted and you're just kind of done with the day and that's the vocal quality that comes out? Or is it because you're trying not to take up too much vocal space and you would rather ask permission in the conversation that you're in and sort of give that space to someone else? The thing that I notice in clients that I'm working with is, to me, when I see a person speaking with vocal fry, a lot of the time they're holding part of themselves back. And so I'm really conscious of really inviting their full voice into that space and into the conversation. And I think in your work as recruiters, that's really quite a critical part of your work, is bringing your full self to it, so that the people who you're speaking to can trust that relationship and enter it in from a really good starting place, and then that relationship builds over time with them sort of really trusting you and having good rapport.
100%. And so look, if you catch yourself with this vocal fry, or you start, how do we get out of it quick? Is it just a matter of sitting up and going, oh, I'm aware of it, wake up? Or are there some things we can be doing?
Definitely an element of that, of like having sort of balance in your body. But also you can do a couple of really easy vocal exercises, like trilling through your lips. Kind of, some people say, oh, it's like horse lips. Just like that. That's it. You could trill your tongue.
Okay.
Some people find that they can do one of those or the other, but they can't necessarily do both. The other one
I did them both.
Yeah, well done you. The other one that's really effective that everyone seems to love is to whimper like a puppy.
That's the one John says he does. Whimpers like a puppy.
Well,
gonna hate me for saying that.
well, you could just do it in like a few seconds sitting at your desk. You can do it as you click out of one meeting and click into the other, or as you go make a coffee. You could do it walking down the street, and trust me, no one will notice. But it's just one of those, like, a tiny little, you don't need anything to do that, but it just provides your voice a tiny bit of a reset. And what it's actually doing is massaging your vocal folds and getting them ready for whatever's coming next. So you just sort of, you're bringing energy to your voice again.
Yeah, okay. And does a lot of what you're talking about today is rapport, quality of that voice. Oh, my voice actually sounds different after doing those three things. Like, it feels richer.
Yeah.
Is body posture, positioning, like, sitting up, does that play a part in your voice, or is that more about airways and resonance and whatnot?
Yeah, well, your voice is breath, so your voice will do whatever your breath is doing. And you can do like a tiny experiment right now. If you bring your shoulders up to your ears, like, straight away, I can feel that I take a shallower breath and my voice sounds different as a result. It's not uncommon. If you've been sitting at a computer all day, the shoulders slowly creep up, and so the breath starts to sit up here, and so it affects everything that you said, right? It does change the resonance of your voice. It changes the pitch of your voice. It changes the amount of energy that's coming through in your voice, and the color and the variety as well. So if you can think of sort of being balanced in your chair, allowing that breath to drop lower in your body, then you're going to pick up more of the rich vocal tones that you have available to you in your voice. Everyone has a 3 to 4 octave speaking range available to them, but very few people use it. We're all born with that.
3 to 4.
Yeah.
For anyone at home, that's like 8 notes. That's like C to C, right?
Yes.
Times 4. That's
Times
large.
4. Well, if you think of a baby, that's the amount of vocal expression they're doing. They have an incredible expressive capacity, but then as we grow up, we use less and less and less of that. Kids on the playground, they don't lose their voice. They don't have any kind of vocal fatigue. But as you kind of grow up and, stand up straight, shoulders in, shoulders, or whatever it is, those various messages that we're taking in, which we have to say, like, they're needed. We can't just run up and down the street crying like babies. We use language to communicate rather than just like vocal tones and expressions that have no words. So we do evolve as we grow up. We use our voices differently, but we can start to use less and less and less of that expressive capacity. And certainly the extensive work that happens with actors in regards to voice is to reconnect to that expressive capacity that they have when they're born. So that expressive capacity we all have. If you're born with a functioning, physiologically working voice, it's about connecting to that expressive range again. Now, when you're a recruiter, you probably don't need 3 to 4 octaves, so you're not going to have that available to you necessarily, because it would have dropped away over time. But that doesn't mean you have to speak with just 2 or 3 notes, or 3 or 4 notes. You could still speak with an octave of range.
I'm telling you now, when recruiters make a placement, their voice gets pretty high with squeals. So
yeah, great. Okay, so maybe you do have. Maybe
we need it. Yeah. Yeah, look, Amy, I do like to keep these episodes nice and tight, and we're rounding out to sort of like just sub 20 minutes. So I'm going to wrap it up. I know you've got so much to deliver and so much to say. So thank you for coming on. This has been good for us. And I think, really, if you're still listening to this, it's about really just drawing your attention to the voice, right? There's so much power in getting it right. And it's something that have never heard any recruitment trainer talk about, any recruitment influencer talk about before. So I genuinely wanted to bring you some value, and who better than Amy? So Amy, really appreciate you coming on. That's awesome.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I asked her before, do we want to sort of, plug her services? And she said, no, please, no, I've got too much work. So, she's obviously in demand. If you want to follow some of her things, you can find Amy Hume on LinkedIn. You say there's not much there. I had a quick look before. There's some great videos. The one about, what was it? How we pronounce R's or don't pronounce R's.
Oh, yes.
There's 2 types of languages or whatever. I thought that was amazing. And I loved,
cool.
Had a Russell Coit picture in the background.
Yes,
I thought it was great.
Awesome.
There's plenty of good stuff. So thank you. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to chat to you.
No worries. Guys, as always, we are looking to grow. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do what you need to do on socials to make this thing go. We're getting there. The momentum's building. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, have an amazing day. And may all your deals come true.